may begin.
It is because I agree with the resolution, I stand in affirmation of today's resolution that globalization does more harm than good. Globalization is engulfing our country and becoming too powerful to control. It is easily labeled as neocolonialism, and I'm here to prove to you why it should be stopped. Contention 1. According to an article called 12 Reasons Globalization is a Huge Problem, China joined the World Trade Organization in 2001. In 2002, its coal use began rising rapidly. Not only is coal use increasing rapidly, but as more and more countries join globalization, non-renewable resources are being used up to the brink of extinction, and when this happens, we won't have any world left. Contention 2. According to Yale University, in 2001, a multi-sectoral partnership was made called the Cocoa Protocol to address child labor in Africa. They say yet 5 years later, children still toil, picking cocoa in unsafe and unfair conditions. Child labor is a huge problem, and globalization is only becoming a direct cause for it. Contention 3. According to an article from the University of Notre Dame, there is a dollar figure on the cost of the Great Lakes from invasive species that originate in the ballast water of ocean-growing vessels. They claim that the Great Lakes lose an average of $135 million annually due to this. Globalization has caused boats from other countries to travel to new countries, and these invasive species are coming in and are making it so hard for our country to thrive. Contention 4. According to an article from Buzzle.com, a lawsuit had to be filed against McDonald's in India after it was accused of serving beef on their burgers. This is bad because eating beef goes directly against Indian culture and beliefs, but the rapid growth of globalization has blinded fast food chains like McDonald's into wanting nothing more than money and power, and they will do anything for this, and it's not fair to these people in India who are suffering. Contention 5. According to Secretary General Kofi Annan from CorpWatch.org, it has been said that arguing against globalization is like arguing against the laws of gravity. I believe this has never been more true than now. Just like gravity has so many principles and fundamentals that make it undisputable that it works as it should always, globalization has a distinct side that it shifts to. It is too negative, and something needs to be done to help with this matter, because globalization is becoming something that if it were to get bad, and it will, we will not be able to stop it.
I negate the resolution that globalization does more harm than good. Whenever you said that non-renewable resources are being used up more than ever because of globalization, well, globalization can help that. We're able to transport different items and resources that can help stop non-renewable resources from being overused. Also, when you were talking about how McDonald's makes way too much money and power, and how it is overly controlled, or overly, it has too much power. Well, globalization can help that. We're able to distribute multiple people and also resources that will help stop those power-hungry people. And it can help, and it can also help the child labor. For instance, there are many people who are against child labor right now who are going across different countries trying to help stop it. Also, I would like to add in that globalization helps us bring our world together as a whole. We're able to form alliances and also new trade routes that can be delivered throughout the world. For instance, I quote from Forbes that free trade, globalization represents free trade, which promotes global economic growth, which means that our economic growth as a whole world can prosper and we can help it grow. Also, because of globalization, we are able to distribute products across the globe with ease. And this means that we're able to transfer resources and also people to these different countries that need help more than ever. Also, with globalization, there's higher competition. This means that in the end, lower prices for resources that a country needs. I quote from Nitwist. Also, globalization can help us distribute cultural products throughout the world, and because of this, we're able to open many other. We're able to be open to many more cultural products, which also lessens stereotypical views and also helps us form alliances together as a whole world.
Okay, so you talked about how our country is our world is growing and the GDP is high and everything. Well, that is due primarily to China, and you know that everything is made in China. Everything knows that. Under your toothbrushes, under all that stuff, everything's made in China. But that's because right now globalization is causing the world to boom, and right now it may be a good thing. But if you look at the long term, and the long term is what matters, globalization is going to bring that down because China cannot be trusted. Talked about non-renewable resources and being able to transport that. Well, again, I go back to my point on invasive species. These invasive species, they live on everything. Germs are everywhere. They live on everything, and they damage these Great Lakes that haven't been exposed to that before. Okay, you talked about how companies like McDonald's are becoming big. Well, they're using these resources, and they're blinded by this, and they are running out of these resources. And once they're out, it doesn't matter at all. You talked about how there are people going around that are against child labor. Well, the Cocoa Protocol, as I mentioned before in contention Two, the Cocoa Protocol was a result of these people going around, and 5 years later, it's proved that it didn't work, and the child labor is only getting worse. And you talked about competition and everything. Well, it's competition only with big countries, and the other small countries are left behind. According to an article from worldbank.org, the poorest 5% of humans are richer than the wealthiest 5% of Ivorians. In other words, social classes matter less than places of residence. If this is the case, then people from developing countries are going to leave in order to pursue richer environments, leaving their countries in the dust. Another piece of evidence is the terrorist attacks on September 11, 2001 that we all remember as a very tragic day. Interactions with Al-Qaeda in this country and these companies birthed completely from globalization and indirectly became the cause for all the lives that were lost that day. According to a book called Secular Cycles, major contenders in the system of globalization are suffering financially and coming to a poor position that could trigger loss of products that other countries like France and England depend on. And when this has happened, then none of the companies matter at all, because all these companies, they don't know how to deal with globalization, and only the bigger companies are going to thrive. These other countries are going to fall. And when these other countries fall, that only triggers a ripple effect. When the countries are tied together with these goods and services, it's just, they all fall down.
Yes, globalization can hurt those smaller countries. However, Mike Collins from Forbes states it also provides poor countries through infusions or the introduction of a new element of foreign capital and technology with a chance to develop economically and by spreading prosperity or to flourish in wealth. This means that those small countries have a bigger chance of being able to grow economically because of globalization, because they are open to these new elements and also these new products that are helping them grow financially. Yes, this might not happen in a day, but then again, you always know the phrase, Rome wasn't built in a day. Also, when you were talking about how China cannot be trusted, globalization helps us with that. Like the high school debates that happened Monday, we have troops in Okinawa today that helps keep that China in check and helps us contain it from spreading and taking over power and everything. Also, when you're talking about that competition is only for the bigger countries, and also how it's only in the bigger countries and the smaller countries can't compete with that. Like I said before, it provides those poor countries with new chances to go up and also have that competition back in order to survive and prosper. I would also like to add that globalization helps bring peace in our world. There's a lesser chance of invasion because there are bigger countries that are superior, who have made many alliances with smaller countries, which then leads to a lesser chance of invasion. For instance, over 9 million troops were sent to Vietnam with ease in order to defend it. This just goes to show how easily the U.S. can transfer these different troops to protect other countries and also keep peace in our world. Also, I quote from Forbes that globalization lets us form alliances and also lets us defend other countries that we have a connection to in all, so it greatly benefits us and them. I would like to say that I negate the resolution that globalization does more harm than good. It helps us bring our world together in a whole, and it lets us form different alliances that we could never have without it. Also, globalization changes the lives of many, and taking away it could be ruining all these things that globalization has built up. I quote from Forbes. Also, I talked about how you're able to distribute products that these other countries need. And also, with globalization, there's higher competition, which benefits us all in the end because there are cheaper products that we're able to sell. And also, because of free trade and globalization, our global economic can grow as a whole, and we're able to prosper and also strive for these different economic wealths. Or we're able to gain prosperity as ourselves. All of this is because of globalization, and that is why I negate the resolution that globalization does more harm than good.
Okay, so you talked about how poor countries spread prosperity to other big countries. Can we trust all countries, though? We have many things going on over on the other side of the world with ISIS and everything. And the last time we combined together, a war happened, World War II, and we couldn't control Hitler. Can we control China? They're even bigger now. Only bigger countries, you said yourself, only bigger countries are strong, and that is so true right now, because the smaller countries are just being subject to all of this stuff and all of this. Republican presidential frontrunner Donald Trump is calling the majority of product production in China alone very scary. It's according to a video about him called Uncut Donald Trump. And the use of non-renewable resources in this world today, according to Bustle.com, the amount of raw materials needed to run industries and factories is taking a toll on the natural resources of planet Earth. It is clear that the resolution should be upheld in today's debate. Globalization is causing non-renewable resources to be overused, child labor to go on a rampage, and invasive species to harm our environment. This cannot happen, therefore I strongly support a vote in affirmation of the resolution today.